Okay, so you guys have sent in some really cool stuff about learning from dynamic visuals, animations, videos, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And we were so intrigued that we thought, let's do a deep dive into this and see what's really going on
right.
when we try to learn from moving pictures.
Yeah. And what's funny is you think about it and we're seeing more and more of these things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
animations and videos are everywhere these days. They're explaining everything like how our heart works or like how to do CPR.
Yeah.
But the research you sent is pretty interesting because it actually says that these moving visuals aren't always better than just like a static image.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of surprising, right? Makes you wonder.
Yeah, it does make you wonder because you would think more information, more engaging row,
You'd think so, right?
more dynamic.
More dynamic. It's got to be better,
Yeah.
but maybe not.
So the big question for this deep dive is really like, how can we make learning from these dynamic visualizations better? What do we need to understand about how our brains work to unlock their full potential?
Yeah, and one of the big ideas in the research you sent is that if we can somehow connect the movements we see in those visualizations back to our own physical experiences, they can really make a difference in how much we learn.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that it doesn't even matter if the movement we're watching is a human doing something or if it's something totally different, like the inside of a machine.
Oh, wow.
If we can link it back to our bodies, somehow it just clicks better.
Okay, so let's dig into this whole idea of connecting back to our physical experiences.
Right.
What's the starting point for that idea? Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from this really fundamental idea in cognitive science called embodied cognition.
Okay.
And it basically says that our thinking isn't just this abstract thing happening in our heads.
Right.
It's really deeply connected to our physical bodies.
Hmm.
Like how our bodies are structured, our senses, how we move, all of that plays a role.
So it's not just that we use our bodies to learn, but our bodies actually shape how we think.
Exactly. It's not like perception and action are these separate things that happen before thinking kicks in.
Okay.
It's all intertwined even when we're thinking about abstract things like language or math.
Okay, so how does that play out? Like when I'm watching an animation of a heart pumping blood, how is my body involved in that?
So the idea is that our brains are constantly running these little simulations.
Hmm.
Like when we experience something in real life, like feeling our own heartbeat, our brain creates a pattern of activity that involves our senses and our motor systems.
Okay.
And that gets stored as kind of a multisensory memory.
Okay.
And then later, when we see something like an animation of a heart pumping, our brain tries to reactivate those stored patterns like it's trying to simulate that experience again.
Wow. So when I see the heart beating in the animation, my brain is almost replaying the feeling of my own heartbeat.
Exactly. And this idea extends to abstract concepts too.
Okay.
Like the concept of pressure might be linked in your brain to the feeling of squeezing your hand or something like that.
I see.
So even abstract ideas are understood through these connections to concrete bodily experiences.
Hmm.
It's quite different from older ideas in psychology that saw thinking as like just manipulating abstract symbols without any connection to our bodies.
Right. It's like the brain as a computer just processing information.
Yeah. And the embodied perspective says that view is missing something important, like how those abstract symbols get their meaning in the first place,
Hmm.
like how they're grounded in our real interactions with the world.
So how does this connect to understanding actions and movements, like when we're
Yeah.
watching an animation?
Well, there's this theory called the indexical hypothesis, which focuses on that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that to understand something, whether it's a real object or a word, we need to map it onto our experiences of acting on things.
Okay.
So this could be actually doing something with the object or simulating that action in our minds.
Mhm.
So when you see an object, it triggers these things called affordances,
Mm-hmm.
which are basically the possibilities for action that we've learned are associated with that object.
Right.
So like if you see a door handle, it might trigger the affordance of grasping and turning it, even if you're not actually going to do that right now.
Right.
And with something like an animation of a beating heart, it might activate affordances related to feeling a pulse or the effort of exertion.
Wow. So our brains are constantly thinking, what can I do with that, even when we're just observing?
Yeah, that seems to be a big part of it.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Okay, so what kind of evidence do we have that action and understanding are actually linked like this?
Oh, there's tons of research that supports this idea.
Okay.
Like one really fascinating area is the discovery of mirror neurons in the brain.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
So studies using brain imaging have shown that when we watch someone doing something, the same areas of our brains that are active when we do that thing ourselves actually light up.
Wow. So my brain is like, oh, I recognize that movement when I see someone else doing it.
Yeah, and it's not just for actions we can easily imitate.
Yeah.
There's even research showing that language comprehension involves this kind of mental simulation of motion.
Okay.
Like, remember that experiment where they had people listen to sentences about throwing a softball?
Refresh my memory.
Yeah, so they had people listen to sentences like, the pitcher hurled the softball to you, or you hurled the softball at the shortstop. So some sentences implied motion towards the listener, and some implied motion away.
Okay.
And right after they heard the sentence, they had to look at two pictures of a softball and say if they were the same size or not.
Okay.
And the pictures were subtly different sizes, so it looked like one ball was moving towards or away from the viewer.
Hmm.
And what they found was that people were faster at judging the size of the balls when the implied motion in the sentence matched the implied motion in the pictures.
Wow. So it's like their brains were already prepared for that direction of movement because of what they heard in the sentence.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like the language is priming our brains for action, even if we're not actually doing anything.
That's amazing. And there's that other one, the action sentence compatibility effect,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. So in that one, they had people judge whether sentences made sense.
Oh,
Like he opened the drawer, and while they were listening, they had to make a physical movement with their arm, either towards their body or away from their body.
oh, okay.
And they found that people were faster to respond when their movement matched the implied motion in the sentence.
So if they heard he opened the drawer and they were moving their arm towards themselves, they were faster to say, yeah, that sentence makes sense.
Right. And if they were moving their arm away, it took them a little bit longer.
Wow, that's crazy. It's like our bodies are agreeing with the language.
I love that. I love that idea that our bodies are agreeing with language.
Yeah.
And there are even studies where they had people listen to sentences that implied rotation, like turn up the volume.
Okay.
And while they were listening, they had to actually turn a knob.
Hmm.
And guess what they were? Faster when the direction they turned the knob matched the implied direction in the sentence.
No.
Yeah, and get this, they even found that just holding your hand in a shape that's appropriate for an action, like the grip you'd use to throw a dart, can actually speed up your judgment of whether a sentence like throwing a dart makes sense.
It's like our brains are trying to act things out even when we're just listening to language.
Absolutely. And we have even more direct evidence from neuroimaging studies.
Hmm.
They've actually shown that when we listen to verbs that are related to specific body parts, like pick, which obviously involves your hand, or kick, which involves your leg, it activates the corresponding areas in the motor cortex of our brain,
Wow.
the same areas that are involved in actually doing those actions.
So it really highlights the deep connection between language understanding and our motor system.
Absolutely, it's all linked together.
So if all of this is true, if our brains are really wired to connect action and understanding, how can we use that to actually improve learning, especially when we're talking about learning from dynamic visualizations?
All right, so this is where the research gets really exciting because it's starting to look at how we can use directed actions to guide the learning process itself,
Okay.
not just to help us understand something we've already learned.
Mm.
So there have been studies showing that if you get people to do certain physical actions while they're learning, it can actually improve their comprehension of text.
Okay.
And it can even make them better at problem solving.
Mm.
So even if the concept we're learning about doesn't immediately make us think of physical actions, if we can find a way to link it to our bodies or our actions, it can really help us learn it better.
So is there like a classic experiment that demonstrates this?
Yeah, a really famous one is Mayer's string problem. Have you heard of that one?
Maybe remind me.
Okay, so it's this classic problem-solving task where you have two strings hanging from the ceiling,
Okay.
but they're too far apart for you to reach both at the same time.
Okay.
And the goal is to tie the two strings together.
Mm.
And the solution involves using a weight to swing one of the strings so you can grab it. So in one study, they had people work on this problem, and then during breaks, they had some of them do swinging arm movements, which are obviously congruent with the solution.
Yeah.
And others did stretching movements, which weren't related to the solution at all.
Okay.
And the results were amazing. The people who did the swinging arm movements were way more likely to solve the problem.
Wow.
And they weren't even aware that the exercises were related to the solution.
So it's like their bodies figured it out before their conscious minds did.
Yeah, it's like the physical action of swinging their arms somehow primed their brains for the solution.
That is so wild.
It is, and it suggests that if we want to improve how people learn from animations, We need to pay attention to what they're doing physically while they're learning.
Right. It's not just about what they're seeing and hearing, but also about what their bodies are experiencing.
Exactly.
So in the paper you sent, they talk about 4 specific strategies for using this idea to enhance learning from dynamic visualizations.
Yep.
Should we go through those?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first one is gestures. Yeah.
Which we do all the time naturally when we talk.
Right, totally. And research has shown that they can actually help us learn better, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like one way is to encourage learners to gesture along while they're watching an animation or learning something new.
Okay.
Like there was a study where they had kids learn a new arithmetic strategy,
Mm.
and the kids who gestured while they were learning were more likely to remember it later.
Oh, wow.
Just talking about it without gesturing wasn't as effective.
So it's almost like creating a physical memory of the concept with your hand.
Yeah, exactly. Like a physical anchor for the information.
Mm.
I like that.
And it can also help by freeing up space in our working memory.
Okay.
Like when we gesture, we're kind of externalizing some of our thinking, which can reduce the cognitive load.
I see.
And in tasks that involve spatial reasoning, like figuring out how gears rotate gesturing, can really help us create that mental image.
Right, like you're physically mimicking the movement you're trying to understand.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that even just making seemingly unrelated body movements, like those arm swings in the string problem, can actually boost cognitive performance without us even realizing it.
It's like our bodies are secretly helping us think.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And what about observing gestures? Can that help us learn from animations?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, well, research has shown that if an instructor is gesturing while they're explaining something, learners tend to understand the instructions better.
Okay.
And this has been shown in all sorts of areas like math and science.
Mhm.
And what's really cool is that when we're learning problem-solving strategies, it can be helpful to see gestures that actually show a different strategy than what's being said verbally.
Oh, wow. So it's like getting 2 different perspectives on the problem.
Exactly, and that can really help us understand it better.
So how can we apply all this to animations specifically?
Well, one simple idea is to just tell learners to follow along with the movements in the animation with their hand or finger. Like if you're watching an animation of a tire pump, you could trace the movement of the piston with your finger,
Hmm.
or you could build the gestures into the animation itself.
Oh, look.
Like you could have an animated character who gestures along with the action, or you could just have a pointing hand or finger that follows the movement on screen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the second strategy is manipulation, which sounds pretty hands-on.
It is. It's all about getting learners to actively do something rather than just passively watch.
Hmm.
And the idea is that when we actually enact actions, we remember them better than if we just see or hear them described.
Okay.
Like there's this study where they had kids read stories, and some of the kids got to manipulate toys to act out the actions in the story.
Okay.
And those kids showed better recall and understanding than the kids who just read the story without doing anything.
Hmm.
And what's really interesting is that even just imagining the manipulation or using on-screen images of toys had similar benefits.
Oh, wow. So it's not even essential to have the physical objects as long as you're actively engaging with the action somehow.
Right. It seems like the act of doing, even if it's symbolic, creates a stronger memory.
Yeah, I can see that.
And this idea extends to how we interact with visualizations, too.
Okay.
Like if you let learners manually change the viewpoint of a 3D visualization, they actually learn the spatial information better.
Oh, that's interesting.
And if you add tactile feedback to the experience, it can enhance learning even more.
Oh, wow. So like if you're manipulating a virtual model of a protein, you could actually feel the forces between the molecules.
Yeah, exactly. It's about bringing in more of the senses to make the learning experience more immersive.
It makes sense. The more senses you engage, the stronger the memory is likely to be.
Right. And it's worth noting that physical manipulation isn't always necessary.
Okay.
Like, for some skills, virtual manipulation can be just as effective.
Mm.
But the key is what the interface allows you to do. If the virtual tools limit you in ways that physical objects wouldn't, it can actually hinder learning.
That's a good point. It's not just about being interactive. It's about the quality of that interaction.
Exactly. And when it comes to animations, we should be thinking about ways for learners to manipulate the movements themselves, not just control the pace of the animation.
Right. So instead of just being able to rewind and pause, they could actually interact with the animation in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe they could manipulate real objects that control the animation,
Okay.
like turning a joystick to rotate a gear on screen.
Mm.
Or they could use replica models while they're watching the animation.
Oh, I like that.
Like if you're watching an animation of the Earth orbiting the sun, you could have a little model of the Earth and move around a model of the sun while you're watching.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Or even just imagining that kind of manipulation could be helpful.
Hmm.
And showing depictions of others manipulating the system within the animation can also be helpful.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like if you're showing an animation of how a pump works, you could show a little animated person operating the pump.
Yeah, I see. So it gives the learner a reference point for how to interact with the system themselves.
Exactly. Okay, so the third strategy is using body metaphors.
Okay, this one sounds a little more abstract to me.
It is. It's about using our understanding of our own bodies to make sense of more abstract concepts.
Hmm.
And it builds on the idea that we often understand abstract things through concrete experiences via metaphors.
Right, like I say, I have a lot on my plate when we mean we're busy.
Exactly. And research has shown that body metaphors can really strengthen learning.
Okay, how so?
Well, there's this study where they had people read metaphorical phrases like chew on the idea.
Okay.
And some of the people were asked to either actually chew on something or just imagine chewing before they read the phrase.
Hmm.
And the people who chewed or imagined chewing were actually faster to understand the meaning of the phrase.
Wow. So the physical action of chewing somehow primed their brains to understand the metaphor?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the physical experience made the abstract concept more concrete and easier to grasp.
That's fascinating.
And this works in the other direction too. Like using a body metaphor for a movement can make it easier to understand.
Okay.
Remember that mental rotation task where they added a head to an abstract shape or replaced it with a picture of a human body?
Ah, I think so.
So people were faster and more accurate at doing the rotation task when there was that body metaphor present.
Oh, right, because they could imagine their own head rotating.
Exactly. It gave them a concrete reference point to work with.
Hmm.
So in animations, we could use this strategy by adding human characteristics to moving elements.
Okay.
Like if you're showing how gears rotate, you could replace the gears with human heads.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it helps the learners map their own body onto the animation.
And for more abstract processes like pressure changes, you could link them to a concrete physical experience, like a balloon inflating and deflating.
Exactly. And you could even have learners interact with a physical object that mirrors the animation, like squeezing a ball that changes size, along with the pressure changes on screen.
Oh, I like that it makes those invisible processes a lot more tangible.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so the last strategy is a little less obvious. It's about reconstructive eye movements.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So this one comes from memory research,
Hmm.
and it's based on the idea that reenacting the things you did when you first learned something can actually help you remember it better later.
Hmm.
And eye movement studies have shown some really interesting things about this.
Okay.
Like they found that when people listen to descriptions of motion, even if they're just looking at a blank screen, they tend to move their eyes in a way that corresponds to the motion.
What?
Yeah, like if they hear skyscraper, they might look up, or if they hear something falling, they might look down.
That's so weird.
It's like our eyes are trying to trace the implied movement, even when there's nothing there to see.
That's really interesting.
And what's even cooler is that memory performance seems to be linked to how much your eye movements during study overlap with your eye movements during a test.
Yeah, so if my eyes are moving in the same way when I'm learning something and when I'm trying to remember it, I'm
Yeah.
more likely to remember it.
Exactly. It's like the eye movements are somehow reactivating the memory.
Hmm.
And they've even found that people tend to look at blank areas where objects were previously located when they're trying to remember things about those objects.
So it's like our eyes are going back to the scene of the memory.
Yeah, exactly. And there's still some debate about whether the eye movements are actually causing the memory retrieval or vice versa.
Uh-huh.
But the general idea is that looking at previously meaningful locations can help us remember.
Okay.
So the idea here is that if we can encourage those reconstructive eye movements during testing, it could help people remember dynamic information from animations.
So how could we actually do that?
Well, one idea is to give people a static image from the animation during the test as a kind of spatial cue. And you could even tell them to look at specific locations on the image to help them reconstruct the movements.
Hmm.
And the paper suggests that text-heavy test questions might actually interfere with those reconstructive eye movements.
Oh, that's interesting.
So maybe using visual cues in the testing phase would be more effective for remembering visual information.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like using the same kind of input for learning and retrieval.
Exactly. And it's important to note that this strategy is really about improving retrieval, Not the initial learning itself,
Okay.
but it could be a really valuable addition to the other strategies.
So to wrap things up, it seems like the big takeaway here is that our bodies and our actions are really crucial to how we learn and understand, especially when it comes to dynamic visuals.
Absolutely. And if we can design animations and learning activities that tap into this embodied cognition, we can really improve how people learn.
And there's so many different ways to do that, from encouraging gestures to using body metaphors to even thinking about eye movements during testing.
Yeah, there's a whole world of possibilities, and it's a really exciting area of research.
Yeah, and it seems like there's still a lot to learn about how to apply these strategies effectively.
That's right. There's so much more to explore.
So for you, our listener, think about how these ideas about embodied learning might apply not just to animations, but to other areas of learning, or even how you explain complex ideas to others in your daily life.
Yeah,
What little changes could you make to incorporate more movement or physical interaction?
it's definitely something to think about.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.